The Help Yourself Experience is a fitness center for personal and professional development. The Help Yourself Experience offers a variety of motivational, teamwork, leadership, and self-evaluating life coaching tools to help you become more successful. The Help Yourself Experience.
Hola, Niha, hello. I'm sharing counsel. Come on in and help yourself. The Help Yourself Experience is a fitness center for enhancing professional and personal life skills. Today's topic is hairline news and analysis the way you want it. This information should not take the place of talking with your doctor or healthcare professional about how to manage or treat stress, anger, or anxiety. Today, we will talk about bosses and employees, the good, the bad, and the bossy. Questions and comments were pulled from our fan base, various articles, and blogs. Now, this program is not for the faint of heart. We start our news with this question: are you a bad manager? In Steve Taubach's article, 7 Signs You May Be a Bad Manager, he writes this: one thing most bad managers have in common is they're not consciously aware that they're bad managers. And if they are aware of it on some level, they're probably not willing to admit it to anyone, least of all themselves. That's because no one wants to believe they're the problem. It is a common enough phenomenon that isn't limited to bosses, but applies to people at all levels, executives, managers, and employees too. Now, I'm not a shrink, so I'm not sure why that is, but if I had to guess, I'd say it's probably got something to do with ego, denial, compartmentalization, self-delusion, lack of perspective, that sort of thing. It would be all too easy to just label these behaviors dysfunctional and call it a day. But I'm not entirely sure that would be either accurate or helpful. I actually think we all suffer from this sort of problem to some extent and from time to time, so no one's excluded, right? So even if you're convinced that you're the greatest manager on this planet and your ability to be introspective knows no bounds, you'll still be wise to check these 7 signs you may be a bad manager. Most of these signs applies to individuals too. So let's take a look at our points of discussion. And now, let's hear from our Help Yourself journalist. I would like to introduce our in-studio team today. We have Adam Weatherford, who's our newest member of our team, along with Sharon Sanders. She's a new member as well to the Help Yourself Experience journalist team. And we also have in studio today Ramon Council. Welcome to you all. Now let's hear what they have to say about being a bad manager.
5 signs that you may be a bad manager are: 1, your group is underperforming. Sooner or later, bad management will affect the entire organization.
Definitely.
Whatever the appropriate metrics are for an organization, poor performance is usually traced back to a management problem.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, definitely. A bad management, it takes a link out of the chain and then everything's broken.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I guess another sign would be your manager is turning up the heat. When a good senior manager thinks there may be a problem, A lot of times they'll come in and discipline a subordinate manager, which trickles down to the lower management. And sometimes the heat gets turned up and people get put in the fire.
Yeah, I've seen that happen. Excuse me.
I'm so sorry. Yeah, you got to look out for that. There's always a warning sign. You can feel it when it's coming. When you're a bad manager, because you can feel that heat sometimes. Sharon, did you know some other signs?
Oh, absolutely. It's one thing for your enemies to disagree with you and give you a hard time, but when your coworkers start to dispute everything you do, it's obvious that there is something wrong with your management skills, and that should be looked at, definitely.
Yeah, it sounds like there's some bad communication going on in there. People don't always know how to relay or provide information in a proper manner, and sometimes when you communicate wrong, people tend to distance themselves from you.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, if your friends and allies are distancing themselves from you and you're feeling heat from upper management, then the writing's on the wall.
Yeah,
this is definite signs.
No, definitely. You could even be in denial about the fact that you're being a bad manager, and you don't want to, but it's obvious when it comes down to your employees and they're just not cooperating with you anymore, so.
Sometimes when you start seeing these signs, you start feeling a certain kind of way.
Yeah.
And when you're seeing those signs and you start feeling a certain kind of way, sometimes it makes you act a little different.
Yeah, it makes you act a little crappy, and other people around you are starting to notice that,
Right.
So definitely.
Yeah, it can make you feel like a real jerk sometimes when you're feeling the heat. Yeah. It's natural human nature to, sometimes you put your shell on and you go into it, and
that anxiety builds up, and everybody around you begins to feel it, and sooner or later it's just, hey, we all know that we have problems with management at this time.
Another one of the 5 signs that you're a bad manager, your decision making is compromised. One of the most visible signs of poor management is poor decision making, and after all decisions and actions generate results, and results are high visible.
Definitely, that goes back to what we were saying about how kind of when people get in their shell and they start acting like a jerk, then they start making bad decisions.
But come on now, at some point, you have to realize that I don't care how much you are into yourself, that you are making some bad decisions and you're not doing the best job possible. So.
Right.
And a lot of times when there's a lot of pressure on a person to make certain changes or to do certain things, to meet certain deadlines, they don't always use their best judgment because they're under so much pressure. Personal relationships tend to fall apart and be dysfunctional. Another thing I've noticed, your personal relationships suck when you tend to be a bad manager. A lot of times it's difficult for people to distinguish personal relationships and professional relationships. A lot of the baggage that you may have at home, you don't necessarily want to bring it to work with you. You want to leave that at home and leave work.
Yeah, but when you're a bad manager, sometimes it's hard to leave that at work because, like I said, you're compartmentalizing all this stuff and you're keeping it in, all these problems that keep compounding, and it's causing you to be stressed out. That becomes evident at home, and that's what causes your personal relationships to suck. I mean, you could end up being such a bad boss that your wife leaves you.
And it does happen.
It does happen.
Plenty of times, definitely. Yeah. And when your employees become miserable, that's definitely a sign that you're being a bad boss, because you're not doing a good job and it's obvious, and you don't want to put it on yourself, and you're just so self-absorbed in what you're doing until you can't see that it's really you're the problem in that.
It's like a disease.
Yeah, absolutely. And as a manager myself, I tend to understand that morale plays a huge part in the workplace, and it also plays a part in your workers' productivity. You got a happy worker, you get more production. You got a not so happy worker, you get lazy production. And I've just tend to notice that from personal experience.
So, are you a bad manager or just an infant manager? Margaret Heffner has been CEO of 5 businesses in the United States and the United Kingdom. Now, this is what she has to say. She states that due to the recession, you probably aren't going to do a lot of hiring at the moment, but that is no excuse for doing it badly. Great managers recognize that in economic downturns, they have the opportunity to upgrade their team. There's more talent than ever out on the streets, and they're eager and hungry and often willing to do more for less. Well, this could be the chance of a lifetime for you. Imagine it. Build a stellar team and shine. Now, that would be what smart managers would do. But what Margaret sees happening is just the opposite. An infant manager looks at resumes that reflect far more experience than they have, and guess what they do? That's right, they take fright. Yikes, someone who knows more than me? Some are terrified. How will this person take direction, the manager might ask. What will they do when I make a mistake? So, an infant manager will turn away talent and experience, instead hire those people who will defer to their every whim. The infant manager's ego gets stroked, and they'll imagine they've been smart because they've saved a little money. Well, of course, they will be wrong because grown-up leaders are never afraid of good talent. They understand that their first responsibility is to hire people more intelligent than themselves. That's how you build a great team. They might also appreciate that this means they can do less work or take on fresh challenges. If they have any caliber at all, they will be excited to learn from those who have done more and seen more than they have. Deep down, infant managers are weak managers, and they're afraid that they won't know how to handle, never mind lead employees who are older than they are, smarter than they are. They lack the presence, the confidence, or the willingness to learn. How about that? Right now, there are thousands of incredibly talented professionals in search of good jobs. They want to work hard for strong managers who aren't intimidated by their experience and expertise. Okay, now I have defended all of those smart unemployed professionals. What happens after you get the job? Perhaps you made major contributions to the company, but behind the scenes, does your cubby or office look like this? Are you the one with the messy cubby? If so, I have some hairline news and analysis for you. According to Suzanne Lucas's Money Watch article, she states that how you keep your desk influences what others think of you. Here's our points of discussion. And now, our Help Yourself Experience journalist team will share their thoughts.
Are you the one with the messy cube?
No. Try to keep my cube clean because it's important.
Yeah.
Tell them why it's important, Sharon.
A lot of studies have been done here recently based upon the fact that, and people judge you if you have a positive, they give you a positive report if your cubicle is clean, you know, and it's obvious that you're able to get to your work and get things done more effectively, but on another percentage you have a messy cube and it's obvious you can't get to anything and you're rambling trying to find things to get work done, and it's just not a good thing. So that plays a really big part in that.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of research out there that shows majority of Americans view a messy desk unfavorably. They see that if your desk is messy, they lack confidence in your ability to complete tasks that have been assigned. They just don't have that confidence in you, and I think it's hard to build a good environment at work. A positive, manager can't set a bad example by being messy.
Absolutely not. It reflects also on your own personal lifestyle, because if you're like that at work, you can only imagine how you're going to be at home. Hard to get things done here or there because everything is thrown together, so that's obvious.
And as well, your productivity. I mean, it's just kind of hard to keep track of everything and know where everything is. I mean, if you have a mess everywhere, you can't put your hands on things when you need them all the time.
Yeah, I mean, 42% of Americans think that a dirty workspace is a result of employees being busy, but 33% of them actually think that you're lazy just because your desk is dirty. I mean, they're not going to just say, oh, well, he's busy. A lot of people are going to think he's a lazy bum.
And I can see that, definitely those numbers.
And I think it's about 73% of the Americans in the workforce today think that a person, or believe that a person with a clean desk just tends to be a little bit more productive overall as an employee.
Because it makes it more efficient for them to get to the things they need and flow right through their day rather than to constantly have to spend time looking for something. So,
I mean, me personally, I hate clutter anyway.
yeah.
Right, I think it's important that, you know, these are the first things you want to focus on if you're having some of the signs that you might be a problem at work. This is where you need to start, with organization, you know,
Absolutely.
because that's the building block of all these other things that you may need to address later, but start with cleaning up your space. It'll make a noticeable difference, and your coworkers will see, hey, this person's trying to make a change.
3, 2, 1.
One thing you can do is not eat lunch at your desk.
Of course.
Yes.
Food at your desk causes health problems for one. I mean, you get roaches and ants and bugs laying around, and then you got to worry about, you know, actually getting food or condiments on your paperwork or your materials at work. Some of these valuable assets like your laptop or spilling coffee on a telephone or something, it's just not professional.
No, absolutely not. And then another thing too, once you pick up a project, go ahead and get it done. You know, don't wait. Just go ahead and start on it. Make sure that task is completed, and you know, the day just seems to go by faster, and your work is complete, and people can see that you're thorough at what you're doing. And then,
I had a boss that called that the one and done rule, and he would literally walk around and find people breaking it and point it out to him. He'd say, you know, take care of that.
Oh,
You
yeah.
picked it up, take care of it. That's how we operate here in the office, and he was a great boss.
yeah, makes a big difference instead of waiting until the very end and say, okay, I'll get to this. Just sit this aside, and I'll come back later and do it. No.
Definitely.
Honestly. And I also think that we should try to use more scanners and less paper. Not only is it environmentally sound to do
Yeah,
so,
save the
but
save
I mean,
the
it
world.
just helps you to organize your tasks better. Any kind of documents that you need, you can get to them in a matter of seconds
Quickly,
on your
yes.
laptop, as opposed to searching through files
Oh,
and
God.
file cabinets. And I mean,
Yeah, I've done that before, where you had this big file cabinet or cubicle where you have to go through the whole thing. It's about 1,000 pages. And
Now you got a little thumb drive this
Yeah.
big.
Let me
It
hit
can
this.
contain 10 times that much data. So why are you cluttering your space and making a mess? You know.
So, if your coworkers are judging you by your messy cubie, you can guarantee that your boss is also. How you keep your workspace is a choice, and therefore people tend to think that it's a conscious one. It takes about 1 minute at the end of the day to neatly stack things up and put them away. Wouldn't you say? When someone can walk into your office and say, "Hey, do you happen to have a copy of that important report?" And you could say, "Sure," and you open one drawer and pull it out, it looks a lot better than, I think so, it's around here somewhere. Getting along with coworkers can sometimes be a challenge, and I can tell you some really wild stories. But to fully understand how to get along with others, the book All I Really Need to Know I Learned in Kindergarten by Robert Fulghum comes to my mind. I have received letters and emails that some of you are complaining about your boss and even your own coworkers. But have you considered that the problem might not be with them, but with you? Look at this email sent by a member of our fan base. Joseph from Nashville, Tennessee writes, "I have also that problem. My boss also idiot. He shouted at me daily and I can't understand. What can I do? So please give me some tips." Joseph, I really wonder about this email you sent. From the way this email is constructed, do you really think your boss is the source of your problems? Well, here's our points of discussion. I want to call on our Help Yourself Experience journalist team to hear what they have to say about Joseph's concerns.
Well, you know you might be the problem if you've had multiple bosses trying to micromanage you. You know, because you might need to be micromanaged, honestly. I mean, you know, you're sitting here all like, well, every time they come by and ask you to do something, you say, oh, he's trying to micromanage me. Well,
You need that.
You
Yeah.
need that, right?
Yes.
You need to evaluate things and listen to what they're saying, and don't take it personal. You know, because that's what
Absolutely.
people do. They take it personal, and then they stop listening. And how can you improve if you don't know what your weaknesses are?
Absolutely.
Getting punished for the same behavior that another coworker does, but you do it as well. A lot of times people think that it may be favoritism.
And
It
it's
just
not,
may be
yeah.
a difference in circumstances.
Absolutely.
It could be. It could be. But favoritism is an indicator that you're the problem. If other people are gaining the boss's favor and you're not, then you might be doing something wrong.
Absolutely. You may be less productive. Sometimes you just may be annoying as a person. Have you ever worked with those?
Oh,
Yeah,
absolutely.
people?
Those people.
Yeah, and it's like if you're late, just like 5 minutes late, they're gonna write you up and fuss you out about it because they probably want to fire you,
Anyway.
right? Right, and then the all-star employee comes in and he's like a half hour late, and the manager's like, "Hey, how are you doing, buddy?" He's
Yeah,
like,
'cause
"Oh,
he's
I'm great,"
producing, yeah,
because he's
yeah.
gonna come in there and do awesome at work, and he can probably do 10 times as much work as you in 8 hours anyway.
And aside from that, he probably built a better rapport and he probably has a better relationship.
Right, it's all uphill for him.
Simply because he's getting his job done in a timely manner, yes.
That and you can't miss the bottom line. It's always about money.
Exactly.
Well, you know you have to be the problem when your coworkers won't even go out to lunch with you. You know, you have bad behavior and you have bad timing. You know, they're working on projects and trying to get things done, and here you are, oh, let's go to lunch, instead of looking at what needs to be done at that time. That's obviously a sign that you could be a bad employee.
It could be. I used to have this coworker though, and nobody would ever go out to lunch with her because whenever we go out to lunch, she'd always be smacking her food, and she spilled like wine on my coworker's pants one day. You know, she's always just causing a mess, and nobody wanted to be around her.
Oh yeah, a constant complainer
Yeah.
too. That's another type. I wouldn't even want to go to lunch with
And she would
them.
only leave $1 for a tip, and every time we come
Oh,
in there,
Lord.
people would be looking at us like, "No, not them again." You
Well,
know?
what about the one who you just can't get their order right? They got to send their food
Yeah.
back
Yes.
5 times.
And you're at lunch for 2 hours.
You
know,
only have 30 minutes.
Right.
Yeah, you gotta wait for this person.
Well, you know, that's definitely a sign that you're a problem. You know, and it goes back to, again, your personal life is spilling over into your job. Your personal problems, the fact that you can't be satisfied with your food and you have bad manners is scaring off your coworkers.
Yes, you're chewing with your mouth open
Yeah,
and forgetting to use your
exactly.
napkin. I mean, things are disgusting.
Exactly.
Nobody wants to go to lunch with that type of.
Well, you know, another sign that you're the problem is if you have multiple run-ins with different ists, like racist or sexist. If you're always getting into some heated argument, got to go to HR over this stuff, you might be the problem, okay?
yes,
you know,
definitely.
I mean, these other people, they don't have repeated incidences on their report
But here
about
you
getting
go,
into it,
yes.
but it's always you on the report, talking about somebody's discriminating against you or somebody's hating on you. Maybe
You're just so
not that
superior
good.
that you know
Exactly.
everybody dislikes you. You
Right.
really could be the problem.
Yeah, you might want to listen to what your manager's saying and stop thinking that they're out to get you, right?
Yes.
That's usually not the case.
And another reason too, if you think everybody is stupid on your job, you know, except you, oh, he is the dumbest, when he's actually doing his job, when you're the one walking around again complaining and a blockhead.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, a lot of the worst employees sit here and laugh at the best employees, like, oh, look how stupid they are.
And all the time they're lacking. The person that's doing the laughing is lacking in what they need to be getting done. So,
Right. It's like human nature to defend themselves. They pick on the other people and say they're stupid.
yeah.
Well, you know what they say about finger pointing.
It's always pointing back, at you.
Exactly.
Exactly. Those are some good reasons.
I'm wondering, are you defining your coworkers as not so bright because they don't understand what you are saying? Have you ever thought that there might be a possibility that you are not such a good communicator? Is it possible that you don't understand what they are saying and not the other way around? These are some points to ponder. Whenever there is a problem at work, you need to look at the possibility that the world isn't out to get you, that you just might be the person who needs to change. We've talked a lot about inefficient bosses and problematic employees. We have yet to talk about how to deal with them. The next question comes from another member of our fan base, Donna in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. She asks, how do you deal with a bad boss? According to Steve Talbuck, the answer is don't. We spend an inordinate amount of time crying and complaining about our bosses. Don't get me wrong, examining bad management behavior is the only way to improve it. And there are times when we can all use a little help learning to cope with a dysfunctional boss. That being said, most blogs on bad bosses quickly deteriorate into a whine fest. Not a W-I-N-E fest, but a W-H-I-N-E fest. And that sounds remarkably like children crying about how their parents are mean and just don't get it. Well, I got news for you. When you behave like a victim, wallow in self-pity, or act like you're entitled to something better, not only does it do no good, but you may end up getting yourself fired or doing real harm to your career. To help you avoid that, here's a dose of reality about dealing with problem bosses. Here's our points of discussion. Now let's hear from the Help Yourself Experience journalist team on this topic.
So how do you deal with the bad boss?
I mean, you got a couple of choices. You can avoid them, or
I agree, definitely.
you can
Stay
go
away.
after them.
I mean, or yeah, you can go head to head with your boss. See how that works out for you.
He's your boss, right?
Exactly.
So what's going to happen?
Could get fired, definitely.
Yeah, you're probably going to lose if you go
And at the
against
same
him,
time,
right?
you may have to think about it. Could be you again, could definitely be you. So.
yeah, on the chopping block.
Exactly. So, I mean, you have some choices. You don't have to go against your boss. You can look into different options. You can go over their head, to the HR department. You can talk to your boss.
Yeah, instead of walking around
There you
thinking
go.
about your
Communication.
God's gift to the bosses of the world and
Right.
okay, I'm doing this just the right thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You can suck it up. Just deal with it.
Yeah.
No job is ideal, It's work. What do you expect? Do you want them to,
Bow down
make
to
you breakfast every morning? What is it,
Yeah, I would just try some sincere communication.
Definitely helps.
That usually works. Well, whatever you do, you don't want to burn a bridge. You never know, you may have to come back to this person for a reference. You may need to come back and get that job back. You may interact with this person in a different way. You may meet them in another job site. So whatever you do, you just don't want to burn a bridge. You want to keep it polite and cordial with everybody, regardless of the situation.
Yeah, it's harsh but true. Sometimes you have to eat a little humble pie and keep it real so that you can keep your job, because in this economy, we have to be continually working. So
Exactly.
that's important.
Exactly. I mean, there's a lot of options out there. We feel that it's better for you to try to work it out because you don't want to burn that bridge. You don't want to go head to head against your boss because you're probably going to lose. But if it's a really serious situation and you've identified that you might not be the problem, but your boss is the problem, sometimes you got to take that boss on. Now, when you do this, we already advise you could lose. Okay, so just know that up front. You could be out of your job if you try to take on your boss.
Yeah, that's absolutely a last resort.
Last resort, definitely. I mean, I've tried to take on my boss before, and I've never succeeded in that avenue. I found myself working somewhere else. So don't do this unless it's your last opportunity. But if you do, you might want to consider getting involved with some of your other coworkers. So it's not just you. If you think your boss is a problem, talk with your coworkers and see if you all feel the same way, and then you might want to go to HR together.
Sometimes it's good to get someone else's opinion from the outside.
Right.
And hear that third party.
Exactly.
Look, I've had more than my fair share of dysfunctional and abusive bosses, and so have our journalists. So we don't mean to appear insensitive to what employees of crappy bosses really go through every day. Still, if you act subjectively without gaining some perspective, you may end up making things worse for yourself. Just remember, you always have a choice. Everyone doesn't have a terrible boss, and everyone isn't a terrible employee. And to prove that, Gloria from San Diego, California, she writes this: I work for a Fortune 500 company, and I must say that I have a fantastic boss. The company I work for cares about their product, customers, and employees. I know that my boss has my best interest in mind and is concerned about helping me develop to my full potential. Thanks, Gloria, for that positive note. You are right. There are so many companies who care about their people and treat them with respect. With that in mind, let's take a look at one final thing. 10 things great bosses do. Here's our points of discussion. And now, let's listen to the final round of discussion with the Help Yourself Experience journalist team.
Yes, and some of the ways that I've noticed that you can find out where you have a good boss is that he works with this company to help build strategies, to make the company successful and get the goals done. And, he allocates the different types of jobs to different employees and encourages and, gives them encouragement to get through those jobs. And if they need help or have a question, he's one that's empathetic and will come in and try to help out with that situation. Those are some of the things I've noticed when I have had a good boss.
Absolutely. A supportive boss is what you would need. Someone who's going to listen and be non-judgmental and help you figure out exactly how to get the best solution out of the problem.
Definitely, you want a boss that's going to give you good feedback, but also give you bad feedback in a constructive way. You can tell when a boss is giving you criticism if they're a good boss, because they can give you that criticism, but still keep you upbeat and not make you feel bad about what you need to improve upon. They work hard too, and they set an example as a leader, and they're hands-on. I've always seen that the best bosses are the ones that know how to do their employees' job and do their employees' job on a daily basis.
Absolutely, and they're willing to come in and help you when you're doing something that they see you need help with, rather than just writing it down and saying, okay, well, you got a problem with this. No, let me show you how to do this. I'll work with you and we'll get this correct. So.
And aside from that, they tend to lead by example. One of the main things I try to do is I try to make sure I'm at least 15 minutes early to work.
It's a good idea. Yeah.
This way, everyone else will fall in line and kind of see, okay, well, he's early, I need to be early as well. Because if I'm not, he's going to know that I'm not here.
And that's a good principle, of a manager to set that example, to be early. And these managers that are good bosses are going to stick to their principles no matter what. They're not going to compromise their principles just for achieving a short-term goal. If they have a mission and they have ethics and principles, they're going to live that, and you'll see that. So you'll know they're good.
And providing the necessary tools and training, I also feel is super important to having a productive workplace.
Yeah, I realized that in running my own business, for example, we had to train our employees, and we spent a lot of time in the very beginning making sure that they knew exactly what was expected. So down the line, it was easier rather than to just throw someone into a job and say, okay, kind of figure it out. No, I think it's better that training is a good example, definitely.
That, and the person tends to be more productive when they have the proper training as well. It's easier for you to sell something if you know what you're selling, or provide a service if you know the details of the service and exactly what's going to transpire.
And then you respect the person that's giving you the training too, because they've spent that time with you to make sure that you know exactly what you're doing.
That, and the consumers also receive it a lot better as well if they understand what it is that they're getting themselves into ahead of time.
So another thing that I noticed that great bosses do is they protect their employees from upper level management that may be dysfunctional. So maybe this boss's supervisor is horrible, but this boss is so good that he protects his employees, and their employees might not even know how poor that other person's boss is.
Absolutely agree. I had to do that several times in my own business because my partners were so harsh and so hardcore to where they couldn't get to the employees, whereas I kind of bridged that gap.
Right, like a bumper.
Definitely.
Yeah, and see, you as that boss control your direct report's perspective. So even though things might not be good with your boss, you don't relay that. You communicate to your employees a positive and upbeat message.
Yeah,
that's how you fix that broken chain.
Overall, the best managers create a work environment where people feel challenged to do their best and are held accountable for meeting their commitments. But most importantly, their key components in an organization that exists is to serve as customers and shareholders. We're all happiest working for a successful company. I've enjoyed being with you and hope to see you again. Thanks for watching the Help Yourself Experience. I'm Sharon Counsell. If you would like more information, I can be reached via email at the Help Yourself Experience. That's THEHY experience@gmail.com, or call 919-218-8883. A long time ago, a wise person once said, "In all you're getting, get understanding." See you next time.